Hello, and welcome to MBBA Learns webinar, Navigating Motherhood and the Law. Today is May 12th, 2018, the day before Mother's Day. Thank you for all of you who are joining us on today's call, and we look forward to having a really robust conversation. But before we get to the meat of the conversation, I want to introduce myself. My name is Paula Edgar, and I'm the president of the Metropolitan Black Bar Association. And my contact information and how to reach me on social media is on the screen currently. So for this past year, from 2017 to 2018, the theme for MBBA has been impact. And our acronym for impact is innovation, mentoring, partnership, advocacy, community, and training. And of course, the training piece is really special. These webinars align very much with that. And while this is not a training per se, it's more of a conversation, a fireside chat virtually. We do want to bring content to our members that will be beneficial to them, and this one is definitely responsive to something that we've been asked for. So, speaking of membership, if you're not already a member or you need to renew your membership, we do encourage you to do that at mbbanyc.org. If you're currently a law student, or if you're not a lawyer and you're interested in just being around lawyers, or if you're not in the state but you do things with New York, basically there's a membership level for anyone who wants to be a member. And so we do encourage you to connect with the organization. So this coming Friday, in exactly 6 days, we are having our premier event of the year. The day before, we have the National Bar Association's General Counsel Invitational on Thursday, May 17th. And then we have our annual 34th anniversary gala, which is themed Impacting Our Profession, Impacting Our Community. Very excited. It's just me and 600 of my favorite lawyer friends. And then we have our after party, which for all of you who already have tickets to the gala, the after party is included. But if you want to come to the after party alone, you can buy tickets still, and we do encourage you to do that soon. Tickets close on Monday. Other upcoming events include our inaugural Transaction Boot Camp, which is going to be on Saturday, June 9th. It's an all-day program hosted by K&L Gates, where we'll be giving out 6.5 CLE credits, including one ethics credit, talking about transactions, going through, boot camp for M&A, transactional drafting, and a blockchain. It'll be followed by a reception. The information on how to register for that is also on our website. Then in terms of our community work, we're doing our final I Am a Solution Town Hall and Community Law Day for this bar year in Brooklyn, and it'll be on voting. It's called Your Vote is Your Voice, and we'll be talking about civic engagement and the importance of the upcoming midterm elections. And we'll also be doing a voter registration drive at the event. So we encourage you to attend, to talk and be a part of the conversation, and also to volunteer if you're an attorney to provide some advice to members of the community who need legal advice. We also have our 5th annual Golf and Spades tournament, which is happening on Monday, June 18th. Very excited about that. If you don't golf, no worries, it's fine. We also have swimming, tennis, and spades, and it's a really fun event in New City, New York, and hopefully that day will be beautiful. You also can get 2 CLE credits, which will be great. Finally, actually not finally, but we have our next Black Bar at the Black Bar event, which will be on June 20th. Also, again, in Brooklyn. We're trying to do a lot in Brooklyn. It's my borough, and it's my last month as president in June. And this is a new Black-owned event venue space, which is owned by one of our members. And so now, here we are for today's conversation, where we'll be talking about motherhood and the law. And a little bit of background as to why I decided to do this is when I was in law school, I went to an event put on by the Association of Black Women Attorneys. It was a live in-person event that was called Motherhood and the Law, and it really helped to shape my understanding of the challenges and benefits, and even my strategy in terms of wanting to become a mother and lawyer. And so we'll have a conversation about that. And I'm going to start with introducing Nadine Etienne Bazil, who is our a board member. She's our VP of membership, and she's also VP and Assistant General Counsel at JP Morgan Chase. Nadine, will you say hello and introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. I'm Nadine. I'm looking forward to speaking with you guys today about this topic, especially since I'm a mother now of two in balancing act, and my oldest is about 28 months, so he's in the lovely stage of terrible twos, and my youngest is actually 1 month old.
Yeah, so you're not busy at all.
No, not at all.
So we appreciate you taking the time out to have this conversation today. And Inga Jenkins is our second panelist. Would you introduce yourself? Go ahead, you introduce yourself, Inga.
Hi, everyone. My name is Inga Jenkins. I am an assistant district attorney with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. I am a mother of one. She is 18 months old. And so we're kind of starting terrible twos, so that's fun.
So I guess I should tell all of you what my motherhood street cred is as well. I have two children. My daughter she just turned 13, and my son is going to be 6 in July. So I have a little bit of a split between my kids, and I guess I've been the one doing this the longest on the call, huh? All right, so let's jump into this. So in terms of the audience, if you have questions during the webinar, there's the ability to ask questions on the dashboard. It says questions on the space, and then it'll pop up for us, and I'll ask it to the panelists. And if you have comments, you can do so using that way as well. But using the hand raising tool that's on the dashboard, raise your hand right now if you currently have children on the dashboard. Okay. We've got, a couple folks with kids. Okay. For those of you, thank you for doing that. For those of you who are just here because you don't know what this is about and you're thinking about it, raise your hand. Okay, couple there. You guys are hilarious. And anybody who's currently pregnant, raise your hand. Okay, cool. So there's a good split in terms of attendees of who's on and what stages they've been on. And I see some familiar names in the attendee list. So hi, folks that I know. And for those who I don't know, welcome to the call. So questions for you, and I'll start with you, Nasenga. When did you... So I know that you're an attorney now. So giving your child, and you have a daughter, and she's gorgeous, is young. When did you decide that you wanted to have a child?
Wow. Well, I didn't. I didn't really decide per se. It happened. Since we're being real here, I did know that. I'm 33, so actually I'll be 33 next month. So I knew I wanted to have a child at some point in life, and I knew I would have preferred to have a child in my 30s, probably not too late. So, it happened, and I kind of made the decision when it happened that I was going to take on the task. I didn't know what it would entail, but I just, decided, okay, if it's going to happen, it'll happen.
Awesome. And Nadine, when did you make this decision?
So it was shortly after, I would say my age. So I knew I also wanted to have children, and I definitely knew I wanted to have it in my 30s. I took a year off from law school before going in, and I was working a bit. So about 31, it was right after I got married, and just like it will happen. So it was right after I got married. So we knew we wanted to have our first son. We didn't expect it to happen so quickly. We're very blessed that it happened really fast. But when it did, we just had to hit the ground running because it was going to happen. And My son was born, I would say, about a year and a half after I got married.
Okay, so we have a similar story in that. So I mentioned to everyone online that I went to this ABWA event and about motherhood and the law when I was a law student, and I was a first year law student when I went. And the panelists, one of the questions to the panelists was, what's the ideal time to have a child? And one of the panelists said, if I could do it over again, I would have my kid my second year of law school. And so I was a 1L, and I was like, okay, I will do that. so I went home to my husband, and I got married my first year of law school, and I went home. It was the spring of that year, and said to my husband, these women on the panel said that the best time to have a kid is essentially now. And he was like, okay. But like many women of color, I thought I was going to have fertility issues because I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, and that tends to have a more protracted and longer um, uh, longer time in terms of trying to have a baby. So when I went to my doctor, he said, yeah, you can start trying now, but the likelihood of you getting pregnant and within this time frame, next 6 months is very low because of this issue that you have. And then he went on to talk about how many Black women have PCOS, and they also have endometriosis, and that tends to be issues that they have with fertility. And uh, so then the next month after that conversation, I was pregnant. so, so
Wow.
basically, when you talk about not expecting, I definitely did not expect this. So much so that I was not feeling well, and I was going to be doing the Balsa job fair, and I tried to get into my suit, and it would not fit. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? I just got this suit. And I was
Right.
feeling tired. And my husband said to me, I bet you're pregnant. And I was like, are you crazy? Like, we just started, what have you? And he says, I'm going to bring a pregnancy test home. I bet you're pregnant. And sure enough, I was. And so, yeah.
Wow.
You never know what your story is going to be. And I tell my doctor all the time that I should name the child after him because it was his fault. So that was when my daughter came to be. So so tell me, so you both have had kids as you're already an attorney, right? I had my child when I was in law school, but there's a lot of different challenges that go with both of those, right? So my issue in law school was being exhausted and still having to perform. That's not the case when you're a lawyer, because I know that it is. But you haven't done anything yet, right? You haven't had you don't have any credentials, you don't have anything to fall on yet when you do this as a student. And so I know that some of the people who are attending are in that law school space. So if anybody has questions now, feel free to put them on the questions tab now. But we'll be doing a Q&A time at the end of this. But I'll just say the biggest challenge was the exhaustion factor. And I don't know what you ladies experienced when you were pregnant, but that first trimester of pregnancy is probably the most tired I've ever been in my whole entire life. Period. Hands down. Like, I would nap 3, 4 times a day and then still sleep 8 hours.
I agree, Nadine. I found the first trimester exhaustion work to be extremely difficult. Prior to working at JP Morgan, I was working at a big law firm and doing grueling long hours. And it was definitely tough for me to stay up and to even like just to concentrate. And especially with the morning sickness, which is not all morning. I found out that was a surprise and it's a misnomer. But I would experience it like throughout the day. And at least for me, what helped, I had a really good friend, one of my friends who also went through the process a year before me, who was more experienced, just give me tips on how to stay awake or give me some advice. She's like, if you need fresh air, like go for a walk outside. Like it won't kill you to go outside for 15 minutes to just like wake up. And she'll like tell me to eat like these lollipops to try to help with like the nausea. She's just giving me like all these like really helpful tips. So I guess it really helped me a lot to find another mom who was at work that went through what I was going through to give me things that I had no idea that may help alleviate some of the, how can I describe it, some of the conditions that come with first trimester of pregnancy.
Ms. Inga, did you have morning sickness?
So I didn't have, you know what, I was more like you. I was exhausted. And I think what you said was right on point. I had never felt so exhausted in my whole life. And when I got pregnant, I had started with the DA's office in April of 2015. I found that I was pregnant in February of 2016. So I wasn't even a full year into my job at the DA's office when I found that I was pregnant. And so not even a full year in, and then to be so tired and no one knows, because I didn't tell people right away, that you're pregnant. I felt really self-conscious because I felt like I wasn't doing or performing the way I needed to, because I felt like I physically, like I just had physical limits and I didn't know what to do about it. And so that was something that caused me some sort of internal turmoil, because I really felt bad. I really wanted to perform and do what I needed to do there, but just being so tired is really can be really it's just, you really don't know what to do or where to turn, especially when people don't really know.
Yeah, I think that most people think or talk about the experience of motherhood as that tiredness that happens after the baby's born. And trust me, that exists. I know we all know that. And
Yeah.
Nadine, I know you know that well right now. But
Yeah.
but that is, I think, something that is expected and that you hear about. But one of the reasons why I wanted to have this webinar is there's so many things that people don't talk about around
Right.
pregnancy and the motherhood experience, that I really feel like we as women would be much better off if we started to demystify this process more, or at least our experiences. Because again, you don't know what your experience is going to be, but if you can feel as if you have a resource, and like you mentioned, Nadine, having, and we're going to talk about this, support and other mothers in particular to talk about this experience with is important. I wanted to add one more thing about the student experience, or being a student, law student experience here, because um, this this was an important part of my leadership and legal trajectory as a mother. Is I made a commitment because I had my daughter via emergency C-section. I didn't know that it was going to be drama. Again, what I know about pregnancy and motherhood is that don't expect anything because you don't know what to expect. So,
Right.
but I had my
True.
daughter during
Very true.
emergency C-section, and so that experience was very jarring for me. And I like, we're type A women, control freaks many times, and I didn't like the lack of control of that piece. And I committed at that point that I was going to, no matter what, breastfeed my daughter, for a full year. I was like, I had to have a C-section. I had no control over it. I had committed in my mind to 6 months of breastfeeding my son, and then I was like, I'm going to do it for a full year because I didn't have any control over this other part. And I will tell you that I think everybody in the world was against me in that phase. Like the whole world, starting from the nurses in the hospital, kept trying to take my daughter, so that because she was crying, and they would not let me, they didn't want me to let her cry, even though she was not breastfeeding properly. They were like, oh no, we should just take her to the nursery. And I was like, no, she's a baby. Babies will learn how to do this. I thought they knew how to do it automatically. They do not know how to breastfeed automatically, and neither do you as a mother. It just doesn't come. Somebody has to show you. Um,
Right.
and then
Very true.
yeah, and then being in school and needing to pump and do all those other things to get milk to my kid, no one, the people were like, pump in the bathroom. And I'm like, you don't eat food in the bathroom. Why should my child eat food in the bathroom? So I
Right.
petitioned as a law student to get a lactation room, and now my law school has one permanently. Um, but that, there was such a big struggle, and people were not, folks I thought would be supportive were definitely not of that process. So, where did you all have any struggles in terms of, and Nadine, I know right now, in terms of um, any of that transition piece in feeding your kid, or that first couple of months, 6 months, in getting acclimated to that process? What was your experiences there?
I have to say
Um,
with
sorry.
oh, sorry,
Go ahead,
maybe
Nasenga, and
you
then
want
and
to
then
go?
Nadine. Go ahead, Nasenga, and then
It's
Nadine.
okay.
Oh,
I wait.
I have to say I'm so grateful with I had Layla at Lenox Hill, and they were phenomenal with I had a C-section too. I had some issues and I had to have a C-section. But I was also committed to breastfeeding. And so Lenox Hill was really great. They had awesome lactation consultants who they teach you when you just have a baby, you're exhausted. When you have a C-section, you're kind of drugged up and you don't really remember what they're telling you. And so they had great lactation consultants to come in and reteach you every day you were there. And so I had a really good experience, so much so that one of my girlfriends had a baby a few months after me. And because they did so well teaching me, I was able to teach her. And so I'm really grateful for that experience because I've heard horror stories where they take your baby away and then give them formula. And not that that's necessarily a bad thing if that's where you're going or if that's what has to happen. But you have to be really strong in telling people, what you want. And like you said, Paula, it is not a natural process. Unfortunately, it's not something you get right away. And so sometimes we feel bad about that, but the reality is it takes time to learn that. And especially when you have people fighting against you, you almost sometimes maybe you want to give up because it's so exhausting already. You have so much on your plate. But you really have to fight for that. And I'm grateful Lenox Hill. They really were great. I mean, applaud them, but they were really great in teaching me.
Nadine, I know you're in this right now.
I am because I have a 1 month old son. So I'm definitely in it. I'm breastfeeding him. I also breastfed my firstborn, also a boy. I did it for about 9 months and then went to supplementing, which is just a combination of breastfeeding with formula. And then after like 2 months of that, he went straight to formula and then turned, he was about over a year old, and then we switched him over to milk after 1 year. And honestly, like I heard again from the same friend and mentor that breastfeeding was hard. She didn't do it, but I am very thankful for certain things that were implemented at my firm, and also the availability of lactation consultants at the hospital I went to. I gave birth in Long Island at Northwell. So I went to the lactation consultants practically every 2 days after I gave birth. I was more mobile because I gave birth vaginally. So I would have my dad drive me there just because of this. I didn't get it. It wasn't natural to me. It was also extremely painful.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if I can do it, and I really needed the support from, because they say it takes a village to raise a child. I needed that support from my dad helping me to get to the lactation consultants. The lactation consultants taking their time to really show me the proper way to feed my kid. The pediatrician also working with us since my son was really small and being on a different growth scale, so working with us before she ruled out, okay, then put him on formula. So I just had a lot of understanding people around me. And speaking about work, one of the great things that, and not to get too political, but one of the great things our last president did with Obamacare, now it's mandatory for large organizations to have a lactation room. I don't know about schools, which is amazing that your school, Paula, actually put one in, but a lot of large organizations are required to have what they call a mothering room. And my law firm actually did have that. So when I got back to work, I actually asked about it, asked where it was, how can I use it, and basically that was a pretty seamless process where they kept it private. Only mothers can go into the room, and you just kind of like scheduling a conference room. You schedule your time to do it when you need it, and I think all of that together is the reason why I was able to, and also my personal determination, like you said, Paula, like it was something I felt like I can control, and I really wanted to breastfeed him as long as I physically could. It lasted 9 months, and I'm very happy for that. But that's like all of that combined is why I thought I was able to last so long, did not give up.
So I think that that's one of the benefits, because we're talking about, the um, motherhood and the law and the intersection of those things and how you navigate those things. And what I realize is being first a law student and then a lawyer, in both processes, I had to use my advocacy skills for both of my kids during the pregnancy as well as birth and after. And I still continue to have to use them. And that's a benefit of having the skill set and the positioning that we have in this piece. So, but I also know, and we've already started talking about this a little bit, is that it is impossible to do this alone. Like it just is, and I know that people have to, but I feel like it's that even if you're a single mother, that you're not doing it alone. It does take a village to raise a child. And so I thought it's important for this conversation to talk about the support structures that we all have. And you've already started talking about external ones. So Nadine, you mentioned, your father helping you, and we talked about sister friends, giving you advice, and lactation consultants, and what are the resources and support structures that are out there. And I am married. I've been married for 15 years this year. I would not want to have kids without my husband, or B, could not have my children and have them thrive without him being a part of this. Whereas essentially we partner in all things parenting. The thing of what is your support structure, and how has it been important for you to be able to mother with other people supporting you?
Well, I am currently a single mom. So I'll say during my pregnancy, I had the help of my family, obviously, my mom, my dad. They were very helpful. I also had a doula, and so that was really helpful in terms of learning about different things, resources, breastfeeding, the importance of it, and things that otherwise wouldn't know, because your mom is available and your dad's available, but I'm my mom's only child, and I'm 30, going on 33, so that's a long time ago.
So let me stop you really quick for 1 second, because I want to make sure people know what a doula is. So can you explain what a doula is, and then continue? Sorry about that.
Yes. So a doula is, well, I guess it doesn't have to be a woman, but a woman basically who is sort of your cheerleader during your pregnancy, and is the person providing you with information regarding every step of your pregnancy, what to expect during the pregnancy, how you're going to be feeling, things you should expect at the time of birth, and things you should be doing or need to do after birth. And so the plan, which, God laughs when you make plans, right? So the plan was for me to have a vaginal birth and do all this natural stuff. It so happened that unfortunately not unfortunately, but I had to have a C-section last minute. And so, but the plan was for her to be there to help me with my breathing during the vaginal birth, to help me, get through the pain naturally. And so we had planned around that. That didn't happen, but she was still there for the birth, and she was still there, after I had Layla. She also came in to make sure I was doing, things right in terms of breastfeeding. She came to my house after to cook for me and to take care of Layla for a few minutes while I, needed to get some much needed sleep. So her role was to really be my personal support during my pregnancy and immediately thereafter. So that's what a doula does. So I had her, I had my mom, I had my dad. My dad is a massage therapist, so interestingly enough, he would come and rub my feet when I needed. Like, okay, Dad, but thanks. And I also had the people at my job. I had to go on bed rest for a little while. So I had amazing support at work. I'm actually really lucky to work where I work because I just had a lot of people supporting me and in my corner. And so in terms of getting things done and realizing, without any preparation that I would not be at work for a while, I had a lot of people step in and step up and they were there for me. And so I had a lot of support at work too.
Awesome.
Oh, another thing. I also had my daughter's aunt, her father's sister. She took care of Layla from the months of 3 months, from when she was 3 months until she was 16 months. Layla just started daycare. And she was an awesome support for me during that time. It was incredible because I went back to work at 3 months.
Wow. Nadine?
Oh, I wanted to speak about what you mentioned earlier regarding advocacy with work. And it also reminded me about, it's something you do learn in law school, how to be an advocate. And sometimes you don't have everything there, so you're going to have to speak up. And I know at my current job at JP Morgan, every department is different on their policies on whether or not you can work from home remotely, or if you need to have an alternative schedule based on your pregnancy. And for me, one of my issues that I had, and I was really scared of, was that I live now in New Jersey, in the suburbs, and I work in Brooklyn. And my commute is really long. It's about an hour and a half. On good days, it's like an hour and 10 minutes, but Jersey Transit's another story. So I was very scared that I was going to have to take an Uber to my New Jersey hospital if I didn't have some type of alternative schedule. And honestly, like I put on, I guess, like big girl pants, and I had a one-on-one talk with my supervisor that when I told her I was pregnant, I also told her, and this is where my hospital is, and is it possible for me to be put on some type of arrangement where I can work in a closer office to where I live? We also have a New Jersey office, and I specifically asked, like, can I work out of New Jersey in a temporary seat, so that when the day comes and I need to get to my hospital, I can get to my hospital. And they were very good about it. They told me that sure, that's fine. They were able to work with me. There was obvious stipulations. I have to make sure I keep my work up and attend meetings like via teleconference or video conference when I'm there. But if I didn't ask, I would have been suffering alone in that respect.
Oh yeah, that's a huge takeaway, is to you are in the same place if you ask and they say no that you are right now, but
Right.
what if they say yes, right? And that you should be asking, because while motherhood is not easy, that's the last thing I would call it, but people relate to the fact that, some people, I should say, relate to this. And so there is an empathy piece that generally exists when you are asking for resources. Sometimes it's not, so I don't want to make full assumptions there, because there definitely are times when people are not empathetic. But I wanted to share about some of the family support that I had. Many of you know that my mother is no longer with us, and so for either of my children, I didn't have my mother's support, but like I mentioned, I had my husband, and I had to have a C-section, and we did not expect that. And so at that point, I did have a doula as well, because I had high hopes and thoughts, just like you did in the saying. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be natural and it's gonna be wonderful. And then my daughter, as I've learned for the rest of her life, is not going to do what I tell her. So so she came 2 weeks early via C-section, but my doula still came to the hospital. She still came
Right.
up to the piece. She rubbed my hands, she rubbed my forehead, she tapped me on the shoulder, she massaged my back, and she came after I had the baby to help me breastfeed. So she was also,
Mhm.
and I think if any of you are interested in getting a doula to support you, that you do get someone who is also a lactation specialist, because it helps. It's
Yes.
two birds with one stone. Um, so she came to my house. She would help me latch, showed me different ways to hold the baby, that would not press down on my C-section. It was really a helpful thing. I still, every year at my daughter's birthday, I send her a thank you card, because I remember and flashback about how crazy it was during that time. Um,
Oh,
and
that's
with my
sweet.
son, with yeah,
Yeah.
with my son, who is now going to be 6, I didn't use a doula because I felt like I had done this already, and I had a repeat C-section, so I kind of knew what I was going to be going through. But I did have my aunts from Jamaica and Barbados, respectively, come to spend 6 weeks, 6 weeks with me each. So I did still have support post, where they both came and spent time with me, and so I would eat, and then also they could hold the baby when I wasn't breastfeeding him, et cetera. So that was very helpful. My house was clean. I didn't have to worry about a lot of stuff that I did with when I had my first child. So it's important, whatever your family structure is, to ask for help and tap into resources. All right. So what about childcare? Nadine, you just mentioned that you live all the way in New Jersey. Boo. Um,
Hey, it's
so,
not so bad.
um, so you put Derek in childcare at what point? Wait, Derek is just
Okay.
makeup.
So the Jarek in childcare around 9 months, and the way I guess to give you an idea of the way my village worked, when
Mm-hmm.
I first gave birth, I didn't know what I was doing. I knew I was going to need my parents' help because my husband was also working, and he wasn't going to be home, and I didn't want to be alone in Jersey with him. So I actually had arranged for me to move back to Long Island, which is why I had the Long Island Hospital. My parents for about the first 6 weeks, a month and a half. Just multitasking. I don't know if you hear my kid crying in the background, but I'm going to be multitasking
Yeah.
a bit right now.
That's what this is about.
Yeah, it's about multitasking. But yeah, I was very fortunate enough for I can do that arrangement that I can go back home, and the hospital wasn't too far from the city. Like it was actually like right in between the city and my parents' home, and I was able to have my mom's help in the beginning. And when I transitioned back to Jersey after 6 to 8 weeks, and my husband actually stepped up and really helped a lot with helping me feed the kid, keep the cook. He's actually a better cook than me. I'll give him props for that. And to help clean, so that was still able to like heal and have some me time if I was tired. Since breastfeeding is also exhausting too. So that we like worked hand in hand to raise a kid. And then my husband was off through his job. Actually, I guess timing worked out, but his job actually ended up closing because the manager had passed away. So my husband ended up not working from about February for about 6 months, and he just was a stay-at-home dad. So when I went back to the law firm, it was about month 4, and my husband just stayed. And when it was time for us to look into childcare options, that was actually when he was going back to work at a new company. And I really didn't know where to put my kid. Again, talking about resources, I I asked around. I asked my neighbors who had kids, where were they sending them to just get feedback. I also at work, I learned that we had a backup care program with Bright Horizons where it was free days. They gave us 20 free days to have your kid be watched. So I actually took my kid into Manhattan from New Jersey. I rode on the path, like I put him in the baby beats Jordan, and we went. He did my commute with me, and I put him into the backup care originally until we like settled on what we liked and also what we can afford. It's unfortunate, but childcare is extremely expensive, especially in New York, in New Jersey. And so we found a school.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. But I said we were able to find a school actually through a neighbor where she was sending her daughter that was in her price range. It was affordable, and it was 5 minutes from our apartment. So that's what I ended up putting my oldest son, Derek, in. He's actually still in that school, that daycare today, which I really liked. And my newborn, that's also a place that we're going to put him in. But I'm also going to take advantage of the backup care program that Chase also has.
I want to pull out two things
yeah.
because number one is what we realize is that for the child care piece, you said something that was extremely important. The second, when you mentioned that your aunt-in-law, your husband.
So my sister-in-law essentially, my sister-in-law.
Sister, and I was like, what is it? Your sister-in-law was able to watch your daughter for that long of a time frame is a wonderful resource to be able to have, because childcare in New York
such a blessing.
Is so expensive. To give everyone a frame of reference, when I was in law school, it cost me $1,500 a month to put my daughter into daycare, and that was at a cheap place. That was a place that was not expensive. For my son, his daycare was $2,200 a month. I mean this is like rent, right? Yeah, that's like rent money. That's like mortgage, and that's something that people aren't talking about. So if you're thinking about having a child and you don't have one now, one of the things that I would suggest, I think we all would probably agree with this, is that you need to start saving money for that piece. Like the child care piece is a huge resource tab. Like, I don't believe in spending a lot of money on clothes for little kids. There's always somebody who just had another kid who you can get those clothes from, and kids mess with their clothes all the time. So I'm a big believer in hand-me-downs because it saves you that. But you have to spend the money on the child care if you don't have someone who is able to watch your kid. So so in terms of what you need to know, think about that. So Natanga, tell me, was motherhood what you expected it to be?
I think it's really important to be real about motherhood, because when you look at motherhood when you're not a mother, it generally looks like, oh yeah, they're busy, but people talk about how much they love their kids, and so it must be bliss. I love my daughter, and I'm sure you both can talk to this and agree to the same point. I've never felt love like this ever before in my whole life, having a child. It's a love that is just, it's divine. Like, you just never feel it. On the other hand, it was a nightmare when she came home. And I use that word to really be real about the situation. Like I said, I didn't really have, when I first came home from the hospital, I did not have a lot of support in reality. I was home a lot by myself. And I had just had a C-section, and my daughter had colic, which just means they cry a lot for whatever reason. Colic means, I don't know, gas, whatever. Like, she just cried a lot. And it was really difficult to get her to stop crying. And so when you are someone who has never really experienced something like that, and you're coming from this, like, life of you can do whatever you want with your time, and you can sleep when you want, and you can get up when you want, and then you come home to this new reality after just having major surgery and not having much help, it was a literal nightmare for me. It was, I don't know if I had postpartum depression, and that's something that people should also talk about, but it was depressing. It was really, I was sad and I didn't know how to handle it. And we did well, we're fine. But
Mm-hmm.
that's a reality that I think really needs to be, like, people need to be open about. It's lovely. Our children are beautiful. But the reality is there are days, even a few days ago, where, I started crying. Like, I was holding her and I was crying because that day was a long day, and her daycare shut down for a reason that was annoying, but they shut down for a couple of days. I had to take her to work with me because I had no choice. I had meetings at work. I had to do stuff at work. And I had to take her with me. And on that day, she fell and she busted her lip. She chipped her tooth. I
Oh.
felt terrible about that. It was a big day. Then we came home. She was exhausted. And then she headbutted me. And she didn't mean
Oh
it, but, like,
no.
she was, like, being, all over the place. And it was 7 o'clock and I was exhausted, and we had done the train both ways. And I literally started crying with her in my arms, and then she started crying. And I was like, oh, shoot, okay, get the smiles back on. But the reality is, you have your days where you have to give yourself a break, and you have to say, it's okay that I'm having a really bad day today. That's okay, because it's not all roses, and it's not all smiles, and it's not all happy. Sometimes there are days when it's just not a good day, and that's okay.
Amen to that. and
Second
and
amen.
sending and sending you virtual mommy hugs for that trying day.
Yay, thank
Um,
you.
I agree with you 100%. When you said that that people look at we're in a social media world, right, where you see the happy pictures, you see the fun things. I just double tapped on her Mother's Day gift to you, right? Like, you see the great
Yes.
things. But I have been very deliberate in my motherhood journey for both of my children, but especially with my son, in trying to show some of the not so great things too,
Yeah.
because I understand that we are not helping our community if we have people be surprised every single time they have a child, right?
Yeah.
We need
Yep.
to equip
Agree.
people, right, with knowing that this is not an easy thing. And I'll just share really quickly that many of you know, if you follow me on social media, that when my son was 1 years old, he was diagnosed with cancer, and
Mm.
he this cancer came, or we discovered this cancer. It was called neuroblastoma. Um, after he had been in the hospital for something totally different. So he had been hospitalized for an infection that infants often get called RSV, which is a respiratory infection. And for me, that was devastating enough. Like, seeing my child in NICU with breathing machines on because he had this infection was bad. Like, I didn't know if he was going to be home for Christmas. And then when I'm in the hospital with him, I noticed, because he had only a pamper on, that he had a little a raised bump on his stomach. And I said to the doctor, "What is this?" And they said, "Oh, it's a tumor. It's not a tumor." They said it was a cyst. And I was like, "Okay." They said, "Kids get cysts all the time. Don't worry." Come to
Mm.
find out, fast forward, his pediatrician sent us to a surgeon to say to the surgeon. The surgeon says, "We got to remove these because a cyst can still, erupt, and it will be bad. But I know it's not cancer." A week after he told me that, we did the surgery, and he called me back and said, "Just kidding, it's cancer." Right?
Oh my
And
God. Wow.
your baby, right, who you
Yeah.
expect to be smart, beautiful. My daughter had no issues. So she never walked into a hospital until the day she had to visit her brother in the hospital after she came out of it, right? She was perfect. And then I had the son who, was hospitalized for this infection, had asthma, and then had cancer, and I did not know what to do. And I use social media in this way to tell people that, stuff, expletive here, is really real as a mother, right?
Yeah.
And that we have to stop making it seem as if everybody just does this and this magical way, Mary Poppins, we know how to do it. It is hard, and that we have to ask for help. We have to.
Mm-hmm.
So, so there is a question. We're 10 minutes until we're supposed to stop, and we haven't gotten to half what we have to do. So, I'm like, as I was reading this outline, I was like, this is super ambitious. We should have made it 3 hours. But I'm going to answer, go to the Q&A because we usually use 10 minutes of Q&A. And I think what we can do is make this a series. I think that would be a helpful thing is to do like a
Yeah.
monthly Motherhood and the Law where we feature, we have conversations because people need to know and address this and have this not be so secretive. Um,
Right.
so one of the questions is, for me, what was it like getting married your first year of law school? Child, that's a whole nother webinar. Was it difficult battling wanting to be a good wife while also striving to be a good student? Um, I'll answer that really quickly. I did not plan any of my wedding. I said to my husband, these are the colors that I want. I said to my father, this is how much it's going to cost. And I said, tell me what day to be there. And I showed up. that was that was all that I had to do when it came to my wedding because I said to my husband, I want to marry you. I love you very much, but I'm a law student. I have things to do.
Right.
So he did everything. Him and my father put this together and did everything. Now, if the question was, what was it like getting married and having a baby and being in law school, that's another whole another thing. It was very, very challenging, particularly when it came to doing the bar. Another comment that thank you for sharing this comment is this is so real. Thank you all for sharing the reality. Yeah, we have to share the reality. Can you talk about the financial reality of parenting, juggling childcare
Mm.
with student loans and saving for your own future?
Mm.
Lord.
Oh, wow.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Nadine, you want to talk about that, Miss Homeowner?
Oh, I'm still in the process of that, but yeah, juggling it all, it's definitely a lot. Like I definitely became more frugal when I had my son, a lot more frugal, and it helped. Like when I mentioned with childcare, I actually didn't know it was going to be rent. I had other mothers tell me it was the price of rent. And then when I started looking at different places, and then I saw, I was like, oh my God, it is the price of rent. And I really had to do more, I guess, work to really find where was a good daycare. And when I mean good, I mean a place that was affordable, a place that I felt comfortable with leaving my kid, and that was working my budget, and realized there's certain things I don't need, just me personally. And maybe the cost wouldn't be there. For example, I know the daycare I send my kid doesn't have live cameras. Um, it was a huge price difference of like $1,000 with the daycare that did have live cameras. And I was like, you know what? I don't really need that. So I'm going to cut back on this. Other things also personally that my husband and I have to cut back on. We do take time for ourselves, but I'm not the first one that will be doing as many like vacations as I used to do. I still will go on a vacation, but we just curbed how many we are doing, or I'm looking on Travelzoo for deals for that. And then as for the homeownership part, I'm like right now, my husband and I are in the process of buying. We just took our time to just save, and cutting out like little things, like going out to eat or using Uber. You'd be surprised how much that adds up. But we just really saved, and we really like said this is important to us. We need to pick a place where that's a good school district that we like, that we want to raise our boys, and we really had to like buckle down with that. Having two kids.
Sorry, go ahead. No,
I was going to say just one thing I did know with having two kids. My second son coming in, things get a lot more expensive. Where it turned into like, wait, I thought I had it down with one. I thought, oh, yeah, I can do two, no problem. And then I realized this is also a whole another beast. Like raising kids is a lot of work, but when you have two, it really feels, you really feel like it's a lot more, especially with the fact that we have to play tag team a lot because both need attention, and it gets costlier. Like child,
I definitely can.
You know, like everything's times two. Child care is now two. You know, like, oh, a car we drive is too small. We have to get a bigger car. Even the home we're looking at, we have to make sure there's an extra bedroom. And not saying like we have to have it. This is things that I personally want. But these things will make your life a lot more costly.
true. So Nasenga, you shared that you're a single mom, and so that in itself already has a financial implication. How what has the reality been for you in terms of this piece?
It's tough, like you said. I mean, I looked, I had I have very high expectations for what I want in terms, we all do, in terms of an education for my child. And so, the reality is I couldn't just, I work for the city and, I'm doing a lot of this on my own, and I couldn't afford, the Montessori schools that wanted to give me 15% off of, $1 million. But, I wanted to, but I couldn't afford it. And so thank goodness I just did a lot of research, and I was able to find, they sort of have, Nadine, you mentioned the Bright Horizons. They have a program for like federal employees called Fed Kids in the city near my job. It's like a federally funded, reduced price childcare, which is still pretty good in terms of care and education. And so I found something equivalent for state employees. And the place I send my daughter to is in Brooklyn on Hanson Place, called Hanson Place Childcare Development. And I actually found out that I don't qualify as a state employee, but this is something that maybe other people can think about in terms of a resource. My mom is a state employee, and so they took her, state employee credentials and were able to give me the discount, because without the discount, that place still was, basically $800 every 2 weeks. I mean, it's still $1,600 without the discount. And that's a lot of money for a single parent paying rent, living on their own. But for me, I couldn't send my child to places that were much less money, only because I needed to feel comfortable with where she was going to be, what she was going to be taught. Like I went to other places and my gut didn't feel right, and I was like, if my gut doesn't feel right, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
I have to say
so I had to make a lot of sacrifice. Oh my God, yes.
That gut piece, I have to tell all of you, and I don't believe, because I studied anthropology, that there's a mother's instinct. I don't. I think that you can have someone who is a mother who is not a good mother and doesn't have the instinct, but I do believe
Right.
that we have a human sort of something within us that lets us know when there's not safety there. And
Right.
every single time that I haven't listened to my gut, it has been a problem. And so,
Yeah.
as a mother, if you can give any advice on this, it would be to listen to your gut. If there's somebody or something that's going to have to be interacting with your child and you don't feel right, don't do it. Do not do it. Um, I wanted to continue to answer the question about the financial reality of parenting, because I am in a current situation that I think will be maybe helpful to share. So obviously there's an expectation that there's a child care, I should say, implication. But I'm in the middle of getting my son an evaluation for school because he's having some developmental issues in school, and so that's a whole another
Mhm.
webinar too, right? And challenges that come with parenting. And
Okay.
there is a process that can happen through the DOE, which I went through, but my gut told me that they weren't getting to the crux of the issue, and so I had to go to a private funded one, and it cost $7,000.
Oh my God.
$7,000 out of
Wow.
pocket. Um, right? And so what I had to say to myself was, till I trust the free one that is not really get into it, and I don't think really hit it because my gut's telling me something's not right here, or pay this private one who may indeed tell me the same thing, but at least know that I
Right.
have done more due diligence, right? This is where, again, this whole motherhood and lawyer piece comes in to get down to an actual root cause of a situation. And so that's what I'm doing. There's so many unanticipated costs. Like you guys probably haven't even experienced this yet. Camp costs more than some full years of school, summer camp.
Mm.
I saw.
Right? So you think, okay, gosh, this is great. I'm done with childcare, done with daycare. All I have to worry about is X. And unless you find a really good camp that has scholarships, usually a camp can cost more than the whole school year. Now, I don't want to end
Wow.
on that note because that just depressed me. So, so
Me
I
too.
will I will commit that we'll continue to have these conversations about motherhood and law. I do think it is a helpful thing, and hope you all tell your friends and other colleagues who are thinking about motherhood. Um, we had already had someone reach out to ask about doing a call just about infertility, and I think that would make sense. That can be maybe our next one.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but what advice, as we close, like tell me, forget about advice. Tell me what one of the happiest memories you have or experience you had as a mother. Tell me one of those. Let's close with that. Something good. And make it quick because we're at 12 o'clock. Let's start with you, Nadine.
The happiest memory. I would have to say, oh, that's my 2 year old. One of the happiest memories, honestly, was when I came home with my son, my youngest son, and my 2 year old came over and he said baby and kissed him on the forehead. I thought that was so endearing. And, like, even now, it's like making me want to cry again. But I just was like, it just really like melts my heart because it was like you are showing like so much compassion at such a young age for this new person, and I was kind of scared that he was just going to be jealous, like who is this kid? Like I was afraid he was going to feel like he was losing his mother,
Hmm.
but it was not the experience that I expected. It was complete opposite. To see how warm he was to his baby brother. Like people have even asked, like, "Is he brother?" I'm like,
Um,
no, he's actually has not. He's really what else
I
I
can
say
hear
there?
him.
But he really
Nasenga.
yeah.
Nasenga, tell me what one of your happy memories or experiences have been as a mom.
Um, I think when she first said mama, because it was she said dada like in 3 months, and then it took her forever to say mama. But then one of the things that makes me so happy, I think recently I'm trying to learn like what she actually understands, because she repeats everything, and she, sometimes she understands when I'm telling her to do stuff. But
Hmm.
there are times she knows how to say I love you, but there are times when she says I love you without prompting. And
Mm.
whenever that happens, I'm just like about to cry, because I'm like recounting what just happened to see if it like makes sense that she would say the words in relation to what was actually happening. And
Hmm.
it, for me, it feels like she's actually saying it because she feels it in the moment. And so whenever that happens, unprompted, and not following something that's where she would typically say it, it makes me really emotional and it makes me really happy.
Oh, that is wonderful. And those, I'm like, it didn't happen to me, but I'm still sitting here thinking about both of those things. I'll share mine and then we'll close. So my happiest experience as a mother was after when my son was in the hospital. He had to, for his cancer diagnosis, he had to have one big surgery where they removed the tumor off of his kidney, and the doctors were, very concerned about how he would recover from the surgery because it was a, huge abdominal surgery, and he was 13 months old. And they laid him
Mm.
down in the crib, and I kid you not, within 20 minutes he jumped up and was smiling in his crib. And I
Oh.
thought to
Mm.
myself, and my husband and I were like looking at it, I thought, he is a miracle, and I'm proud to be a part of his existence. So anyway, I thank you
Yeah.
all for being a part of this, and I promise everyone on the line that we will continue to do this conversation and tell a friend, and please provide some feedback if there are topics or questions that you have. And have a wonderful day. And for those of you who are mothers or mother others in other any way, happy Mother's Day. Bye bye.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.